and welcome to the YYC Soccer Podcast. My name is Jason Kmet, and my co-host is Scott Strasser. Hey, Scott.
Hi, Jason. How's it going?
Pretty good weekend overall, We had a real nice summer day today. Went for a bit of a bike ride here today, and yeah, it was pretty good. How about you? How was your weekend?
It was good. My son's birthday party was today. He's turning 2 later this week, so we had a ton of people over at our house. It was a pretty big endeavor overall getting ready for this party, but it went off really well without a hitch. And yeah, we just finished cleaning up about 2 hours ago, so I'm definitely pretty wiped, but excited to record another episode and talk about some of the soccer that we watched this weekend.
Yeah, we had a chance to watch a few interesting matches overall. So this is our beginning of the week recap episode of what happened on the weekend. We're going to talk about the Calgary Wild playing the Ottawa Rapid. We're going to talk about Cavalry and their match against Halifax Wanderers. Calgary Blizzard, the women were at the Inter-Provincial Championships up in Sherwood Park, and we'll touch on that as well. So definitely some interesting games to talk about for sure.
Let's dive right into it.
This is Jacqueline Savixi, and you're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
So let's kick it off by talking about the Calgary Wild ending their 3-game losing streak by unexpectedly beating the Ottawa Rapid 1-0 in Ottawa. This is the first time that the Wild have been able to beat Ottawa this season. It was a 1-0 win. Jackie Savitsky scoring in the 77th minute. Jason, this was a game that, we've talked a lot about how the Wild, in order to get a positive result against the Rapid, need to be able to stop Delaney Pridham from scoring. And this was a game where they managed to do that.
Yeah, there was a couple situations, I think most notably, it was right around the half-hour mark of where she actually got in on goal, and she actually beat Wild keeper Steph Bukovic, but somehow miraculously Ali Green cleared it off the line to save it. So great, defensive effort there, bailing out the keeper on that one.
Yeah, and I think Bukovic did have later on in the match a key save on a shot from Pridham, and I noticed Pridham also hit a few wide. So it wasn't her best day in a Rapid jersey, but she is one of the most dangerous offensive players in this league. And it was definitely obvious that the Wild had done their homework and knew that to stop Ottawa, they were going to have to stop Pridham. And they were going to have to find a goal at the other end of the field. And they did get that done through what I would call an unlikely source.
Yeah, Jackie Savitsky is not exactly someone that I think the team looks to for goals typically. She's a distributor. She's kind of in charge of what's going on in the midfield, but not somebody who tends to score lots and lots of goals. It's not something she typically does.
No, but this was a pretty nice goal overall. It started on the right with a cross from Grace Storty. It was headed back in toward, it was to the back post, and then it was headed back in toward goal by newcomer Jorian Baucom. And yeah, Savitsky was there to get on the end of it, and she hit it in off the crossbar. And just in case it was uncertain if it had crossed the line, she managed to knot it in with her head. So good goal from the Wild, and set them up well, because just 10 minutes or so before this, they had missed a penalty, which I believe was their first penalty kick of the season.
I'm pretty sure it was. I think we talked about this in a previous episode about they haven't really drawn any penalties. And yes, this is the only one I can think of.
And Maggie Doherty-Howard, her shot was saved. So not a great penalty. It was a good height for the goalkeeper, but thankfully Savitsky was able to make amends just a few minutes later.
I think this one's got to be viewed as obviously a positive result, but also I think the thing about this match that I liked, from what I saw of it, a lot of the things that the Wild needed to work on and get better at from what we've seen so far, it seems like they were working on those things and they were able to execute well. They created offensive chances in the box. They drew a penalty. They scored. They played strong defense. I think they did a lot of the things that we've talked about they needed to do.
Yeah, and they were on the road. So to get 3 points on the road against a team you hadn't been able to beat, definitely a great day for the Calgary Wild. And yeah, in terms of what it means for their position in the table. They're still in 5th place in the 16 division. 10 games left. They're 3 points back of Vancouver in 4th. So if they had only drawn this game, it would have looked pretty disappointing, and there'd be a bit of that gap between Vancouver and Calgary. But yeah, this keeps them in the hunt for 4th or even 3rd place, because Ottawa is just a point ahead of Vancouver. So now 4 points ahead of Calgary.
Even though they didn't go up in the table, they did create a bit of breathing room between them and Halifax. So now there's a 5-point gap. So Halifax has 12 points and Calgary has 17. So you don't hear the footsteps quite as much with this win. There's a bit of separation.
This is Daan Klomp, and this is the YYC Soccer Podcast.
So now we'll turn our attention to Spruce Meadows Saturday afternoon. Cavalry FC played HFX Wanderers, and it was quite a game, a 0-0 draw. But I'll tell you what, there was a fair amount of excitement and a lot to talk about, even though it was a 0-0 draw.
Definitely. When we previewed this match, we talked about how both teams were coming into it on losing skids. Halifax on a 4-game losing streak, and Cavalry on a 3-game losing streak, and how it was hard to predict how the game was going to play out because of that. And I guess if you're two teams that are in the middle of slumps, maybe a goalless draw is a bit unsurprising. But yeah, as you mentioned, for a goalless draw, there was a lot of action. There's a lot to talk about. A goal from Cavalry called back that really should have counted. I think we're going to focus on that. But there was also a bit of luck in terms of Cavalry not conceding a penalty early into the match when Callum Montgomery accidentally handballed in the box quite blatantly. So yeah, it's a game where I think we're going to have to focus on the refereeing, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think the Montgomery handball was, a pretty bad gaffe, but and I do want to talk about it, but I kind of really think that, the focus for me is that disallowed goal. That one bugs me.
Yeah, it was a corner kick from Cavalry, went to the back post. Very similar, actually, to the goal that the Calgary Wild scored. And yeah, the ball was headed back in, I think, by Eric Kobza. Tobias Warshevsky open at the back post, 1 yard out, and easily nodded the ball in. It looked like a fine goal to me, and when the whistle sounded, I think I was just really confused. Like, what happened? Why didn't that goal count? Was it offside? Was there a foul I didn't see? And when I went in at the end of the match and caught the replay, I mean, it was like, are you serious? How does that get called a foul on Ryan Yesley?
I'm not a professional journalist, and I also don't think I'm just like a fanboy. Like, I think that it's like I try to maintain a little level of objectivity, and if something, you see something, you'll call it out. Like we're going to talk about maybe with the Montgomery handball, but that play made me angry. I don't know. That one just crossed the line for me, and I just I just thought it was so cynical and so beyond the pale. It's like, what do you really say about a keeper who their first thought on that play was, I'm going to dive and see if I can draw the foul, and then I'll get up again and then I'll get involved in the play. Like, I don't know, like, Scott, you've probably watched over the years more matches than I have, but I've never seen that before. And like I said, I just made me nuts.
Yeah, I think it's hard to referee a corner kick because you have to be watching the ball, and this kind of happens off the ball where Ryan Yesley just kind of falls into Natigny. And from the referee's perspective, I guess if you turn your attention from the ball, which is in mid-flight, to the goalkeeper and you see him down, you think, oh, okay, the keeper was fouled. But yeah, I mean, watching back, it was pretty blatant, wasn't it, from Ryan Yesley? He just kind of fell over and tricked the referee. And yeah, this goal should have counted for Cavalry. I do think, though, that you shouldn't be, if you're from Cavalry, I mean, you gotta create more chances than that, and you got to put the ball back in the back of the net at other moments of the game as well. But yeah, I mean, from a Cavalry perspective, you can absolutely feel a bit robbed by that decision going that way.
I think the thing about it, like when you look at this and you look at the Callum Montgomery handball, which, it's a bad gaffe, and probably should have been a penalty that would have been a gift to Halifax. Because let's face it, I don't even think they even had anybody in the Cavalry half of the field. They would have got a penalty out of it. And they probably should have got a penalty out of it. But that was it was a missed call, but it was kind of a gaffe. This just to me is the epitome of a cynical play. You know what I mean? And I know that like diving and flopping is part of the game. And usually I know for myself, at least, I don't, I kind of can accept that's part of it. And I can accept some of the officiating stuff. But yeah, that one it crossed the cynical line for me.
We are not the only people to be talking about this play. Hey, Jason, you and I, we attend these post-game press conferences, and this was a bit of an awkward one, wasn't it? I hadn't been in a Cavalry post-game press conference that had this much tension. I've been to a lot of post-game press conferences at these Cavalry FC games over the last 6 years, and I don't think I've been in one that was as uncomfortable as this one, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, it was a very strange vibe.
So let's just explain what we mean by that. So I asked at the beginning of when it was Tommy Wheeldon Jr.'s turn, I asked him about tactics because I've noticed that Cavalry always seems to line up in a 4-2-3-1. And I just wanted to ask, since you're on this really frustrating run of form at the moment, why not switch it up and try something radically different? A back three, 2 strikers up front who could play off of each other, maybe a 3-5-2, something that's a little bit different. And I think he felt very defensive, and he said, what am I supposed to do when I have all these players out injured or suspended, and I don't even have a second striker right now who can start and play a full 90. So, I think my question was valid. I think his answer was valid, but I think it pissed him off a bit because he kind of pivoted toward talking about the refereeing, and then he started asking us in the press section, like, what would you do on that play or something? It was kind of weird because it was like a rhetorical question. And we were all just kind of like, do you really want us to answer your question? I mean, but he was definitely calling out the caliber of refereeing.
You've been to way more of these than I have, but he was really mad. He was really angry. And he really, and you're right. He didn't even really need a lot of prompting. He just wanted to go both barrels in about the refereeing and about the calls and stuff. So it's quite possible that he'll get a call from the league about that. But I was definitely getting the impression that he's just could not have been more frustrated. And I kind of, in a way, understand why he would maybe feel that way.
Definitely when considering the disallowed goal. But I mean, overall, I think from Cavalry's perspective, like there were a few positives to take, right? Like I think some players really played well in this match, and it is a game that I think overall Cavalry should have won. Obviously, they're in a slump right now. 1 win from their last 8, 4 games without a win. I do think it's coming to an end, though. Like, this is a dark chapter, but I think there's only a few pages left in the chapter. Like, I do think that this Cavalry team is good enough to put some wins on the board, and yeah, they just need a few lucky bounces and maybe a penalty or a lucky goal. They just need a win to get the monkey off their back, and I do think that they can challenge for third. That's as high as they're probably going to get this year, but it still hasn't slipped away, which I think is kind of fortunate.
Yeah, like they're right there. Like York, Halifax, and Cavalry are all right in the mix for that third spot right now. So I agree with you. I think that they're close. And one thing, and I know Tommy Wheeldon Jr. mentioned it in this press conference, and I know he mentioned at least one other one about the whole Ali Moussi suspension and about how Moussy's going to have a chip on his shoulder when he comes back. I was thinking about it, like Moussi had been kind of not playing his best football before the suspension. Maybe if somehow this does motivate him and does sort of put the chip on his shoulder, maybe it'll shake him out of, whatever he's been in prior to the suspension. And let's face it, if his game starts to be on the upswing, he's one of the most dangerous offensive players in the league, and that would be huge for Cavalry.
Yeah, and I maybe we saw a little bit of that from Gauthier Natigny, who's back from his own suspension, right? And I thought he was one of Cavalry's most promising players, especially in that first half. He gets on the ball, and we've talked about this. He just always fancies himself taking on his defender in a 1v1. And I think that is something that Cavalry needs. on the wings, and he provides that. And yeah, I think that, if you've got Ali Musi cutting in, if you've got Gauthier Natigny on the other wing, like, they're going to wreak havoc on defenses. But yeah, having them both back will be key. And obviously, I think there's a lot of players within Cavalry FC who need to step up their level if the team is going to challenge for that third spot. But this is probably one of, if not the most talented Cavalry rosters we've seen. So they have the quality to get it done. It's just they're just in a bad place mentally right now.
They've made some additions. Eamon Salouf has played, and he's just hasn't been able to find the back of the net. He's had a few really good chances, but yeah, you got to think that that's going to change too. And also, Scott, maybe we'll talk about, they have added in a couple offensive players, but they subtracted one here on Friday.
Yeah, we found out on Friday, just after recording our last episode, that Jay Herdman has been loaned to Vancouver FC for the rest of the season. I think this move does make sense. Cavalry was a little saturated on the left wing, especially after bringing Eamon Salouf in. So Jay Herdman hadn't been having the season this year that he had when he joined midway through 2024 season. And I think going to Vancouver, it's a city he's already very familiar with. I think it's a team that could benefit from having him. So I think it's a move that makes sense, especially when considering that Cavalry will still control his rights.
We're recording this on a Sunday evening, and Vancouver FC did play earlier today, and he did get the start, played 70 minutes for Vancouver FC. So he's already getting some minutes right off the bat. And yeah, to me, it seems like kind of a no-lose situation here at this point, because I think it's going to be harder and harder for him to get minutes. If his game really starts to improve, at the end of the day, they still Cavalry still has his rights. So then they've essentially got him as an asset. Either bring him back for 2026 or possibly move him.
And Jason, this is more speculation than anything. I just think it's worth mentioning. We love Daan Klomp on this podcast, and I think we're the first to point out that he is no longer with that club that he had joined from Cavalry in Belgium. So he's a free agent at the moment.
I noticed it actually earlier in the last week. I went to the club's website, and he wasn't listed on the roster. When you click on a website and it says all the players of the team and a picture and bio, he wasn't on there. So kind of had a feeling something might be up. And then, I've heard a couple other things that something might be up, but yeah, it was made official. So he's a free agent, and, I guess obviously he's a legend around here. I don't know what your thoughts about it are, but I think it probably would be a bit optimistic to expect him to be back with the Cavs right away or anything like that. But obviously that'd be pretty cool if it ever happened.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's not. I don't think it's happening at all. We saw Calgary sign Levi Lang more or less to replace him. I think you can only imagine that after spending a season with a pretty big club in Europe, his salary demand is going to be even higher than it was before. So yeah, we're not talking about this as maybe Daan Klomp will come back, but it is interesting that he's a free agent, and that, he's looking for a club.
Hi guys, it's Elijah Adekubi, and you're listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast.
All right, Scott, we want to talk about League One Canada, not League One Alberta this time, and the Inter-Provincial Championships for the women's division in Sherwood Park this weekend. We had Calgary Blizzard. They had their first match on Friday evening, and they played the Quebec representative. I believe they're CS Mount Royal Outremont, I believe.
Yeah, Montreal Outremont. And it was a win-and-you're-in situation, so winner advances to the final, which was earlier today. Unfortunately, Blizzard couldn't get it done. Montreal won this one 2-1, despite Blizzard going up 1-0 shortly before halftime through Annalise Stiporia. But 2 goals in quick succession, 65th and 66th minute, meant the Quebecers won, and Blizzard's hope of competing for Inter-Provincial Championship earlier on today, on Sunday, didn't come to fruition.
So they ended up playing in the third place match, and they played Altitude FC, which is the League One BC champions. And, they were able to grab the bronze medal.
That game finished in a 2-2 draw, and it went to penalties, which Blizzard ultimately prevailed. So good that I guess if you want to call them the home team, as this tournament was taking place in Alberta, did manage to make it on the podium, and I guess it's one spot better than they did last year when they went to Hamilton and finished fourth with 2 losses. But overall, Jason, I know you and I were talking about this briefly on Saturday. The lineup that Blizzard fielded in that game against Montreal was a little bit of a head scratcher.
Well, I think it's what they had, right? So on that starting 11, they had 3 players like that were, well into their 30s. And they had Warren Houghton, who's, 25, but, graduated from university. And they had a bunch of 15 and 16-year-olds. I think they had one player that was 17.
Yeah, I think it's telling that this tournament is happening in early August when university teams are well into their preseason training. And we know that there's a lot of Dinos players on this Blizzard team. Dinos are on a road trip at the moment. So that explains the absence of so many players who would typically start for this Blizzard team and who obviously helped get the team to qualify for this tournament. But yeah, obviously a very different looking Blizzard team than what fans have gotten used to watching. But yeah, that player who scored for them, Annalisa Sikoria, she's only 15, is she not?
She's definitely one of the teenagers. I think she's 15. I understand the whole situation and everything like that. I find it a bit frustrating because I actually think that based on what I saw in those matches, like if the Blizzard would have had some of their university players, I think they would have had a pretty good chance at being in the gold medal game. And I think they could have had a chance to win it, but they're stuck, and that's the way it works out, I guess. Unfortunate, but still congrats to them on getting the bronze medal.
Thank you for listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast. You can have this podcast downloaded to your device as soon as it becomes available by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or other platforms. Check out our website at yycsoccer.com, where you can look through our episode archive and find other options to listen, including our YouTube channel. We also have links to buy my book, Here Come the Cavalry, chronicling the history of professional soccer in Calgary. You can leave a question or comment in the Contact Us section of our website. You can also interact with us on social media such as Twitter and Instagram and Blue Sky, where our username is @YYCSoccer403. Thanks for listening.